Yesterday, President Donald Trump signed an executive order targeting mail-in voting across the country. Now, the president has long claimed, without evidence, that U.S. elections are filled with fraud and voting by mail is cheating. Carter Walker is a senior reporter with the nonprofit news organization VoteBeat. He's joining us to take a deeper dive into all of this. Carter, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
You know, the executive order is quite long. There's a lot of parts to it. I know I've read it, you've read it. Explain to us what it all means. What's all in there?
Yeah, so there's like you said, a couple of components to this executive order. They all focus really around mail-in voting. The president is directing the Department of Homeland Security to work with the Social Security Administration and gather some federal databases and create a list of all citizens who are eligible to vote and send that off to each state so they can compare those lists with their voters and know who's going to be eligible to vote by mail in the federal government's opinion for the upcoming election. The other thing it directs is for states to provide a list of their voters that they are going to be sending mail ballots to USPS 60 days before the election. And importantly, it directs USPS to only send ballots to voters that federal government has determined are eligible. The other thing it's seeking to do is to have states use mail ballot return envelopes that have unique barcodes that track those ballots, and those barcodes would be attached to those citizenship verified voters, kind of similar to when you send a package out through USPS, you can get that tracking information.
Now, for anyone who is familiar with mail-in voting, the rules in Texas, they heard you list out those rules and they noted that some of those things really kind of run counter to what we do in the state of Texas, you know, just looking at Texas. And states are in charge of running elections. So talk to us about, you know, the intersection, right, of those conflicts, as well as what some state attorneys general are saying. They're calling this unconstitutional.
That's right. Yeah, the U.S. Constitution is pretty clear on where the authority for elections resides. It says the time, place, and manner of how elections are run resides with the states, subject to rules made by the Congress. Importantly, in that provision, the president is left out of that equation. So the president doesn't have authority over elections under the Constitution, which is why you see Democrats, election officials coming out and saying pretty quickly that this is unconstitutional, that they don't feel it's going to survive a court challenge, already previewing that they're going to be suing. The president countered this issue back in last year as well, when he had a previous order on election administration trying to implement a proof of citizenship requirement for registering to vote. And in much the same manner, that provision was challenged on this basis that the states have the authority to do that, and it was blocked by the courts. So that's what we're watching to see if it's going to happen in this case.
Yeah, when I think about Texas, I mean, just even that rule that the list of people who would be voting by mail has to be within 60 days. Well, people can still request their mail-in ballots, right? Well, after that 60-day mark, you know, what happened? Is there any type of precedent, you think, about giving this type of oversight over who can vote by mail, you know, to the post office, to the federal government?
Right. Well, there's definitely no precedent for the post office or federal government really being involved in this level at specifically who's voting and how they're voting. You know, states obviously work with USPS to deliver their ballots. They work with them on designing the envelopes, making sure that it stands out so the mail processing facilities know to sort that mail and get it to county election officials much quicker. But the other thing you mentioned there is really important to keep in mind. You know, this executive order sets time limits on when this list that the federal government is creating of citizens who are eligible to vote and the lists that the states are supposed to be creating of who they're going to be sending mail ballots to, saying the states and the federal government need to swap those lists 60 days prior to the election. But as you pointed out, you know, in Texas and Pennsylvania, where I am, many states around the nation, they have a lot of deadlines dealing with mail voting, dealing with registration that are far past that 60-day time limit. So the question becomes, okay, well, How frequently are we updating that list? What's happening? Are they going to be in conflict? So even if there wasn't this question about the president's authority to do these things, there's a lot of outstanding questions on just logistically how would we implement this.
Yeah, will be interesting to see. And like you said, the court's definitely going to probably have a say in all of this. Senior reporter Carter Walker with Voby, we thank you so much for your time.